You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hey, check this out. I have an hourglass I have an hourglass made of hand sanitizer. Make sure you guys got your hand sanitizer. You're watching Kickin It With Onrie, the live crowdfunding show, and we're coming to you live from San Diego Comic-Con. We'll see you guys in just a second. For years, I have traveled the world slinging my creator-owned comics at the biggest and hottest cons. Now I'm sitting down with creators who have active crowdfunding campaigns happening right now, and I'm opening the gateway so that you can connect with them and support their work. You're watching Kickin It With Onrie, the live crowdfunding show. What is up, everybody? You're watching Kickin It With Onrie, the live crowdfunding show. And like I said before we jumped into our intro, we got our guest today coming live to us from San Diego Comic-Con to talk about his awesome, fantastic Kickstarter campaign. It is my pleasure to welcome one of the greatest showmen in modern comics, Victor Dandridge Jr.
Come on, man. How are you going to give me the showman thing? That's you. You know.
No. Don't even start.
Come on. Get out of here. Look, we saw the montage of your credits at the beginning. Just showmanship.
Jared,
yes.
Hey, dude, when you and I first met at Phoenix Comic-Con back in
yes.
Dude, we rocked that show together.
Dude, that was such a
I
great
had
show.
So much fun. I had so
great
much
show.
And we haven't been neighbors since.
I know, because listen, they know better. They can't put that kind of energy together again. That was an accident that they did it the first time, and they're like, never again. We will. Yeah, no, we cannot.
All right, Victor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you here, and thank you. You are probably got so much going on right now. You are literally the hardest working man in comics.
Thank you.
Tell us who you are, what you do. Give us the lowdown.
Of course. So I am Victor Dandridge, hardest working man in comics. I'm a phenomenological narratologist. So I teach the philosophy of writing to anyone that wants to hear it, whether you are a brand new neophyte to writing, a kid in a classroom, or an established pro that wants to reinvigorate their ideas on it. I am the brains behind Vantage In-House Productions, which is my self-publishing imprint. And I've been doing that full-time for the last 12 years. And we've got a number of amazing titles out, including the thing that we're going to talk about today, my beautiful co-created all-ages title, award-winning piece, Wonder Kid Presents the Kindergartens. Big shout-out to Justin Castaneda, my co-creator and collaborator on that series. It's fantastic. Absolutely love it.
So JD Smith's in the house. He's saying, Victor, your hat almost looks like a vinyl record. It's dope. I agree.
What? You already know. Listen, they keep calling this my Rev Run hat, and I'm like, well then, yeah, come on. You know, you want to be down with the king? This is what you do.
And why am I so serious? Because I got a serious guest on here. You know, no, like seriously, man. You know, just seeing Kyle and I talk about you all the time in the sense that I look at what you're doing in comics, and I'm just completely blown away by how much passion and energy you bring to our industry. So when I say like the whole showmanship thing, I seriously, I consider you, Michael Watson, you guys, the Four Horsemen, you got Jean-Paul Deschamps, you know, creating his own comics and everything.
Of course.
You guys are truly just such a huge inspiration to me. And then I'm sorry you have to share a state with Ted. That's the unfortunate thing.
Come on, Sakura's dope, man. We love him too. Great.
He's actually at the show right now too.
Yes. So San Diego, of course, being as big as it is, I haven't seen him yet, but I hope I run into him before we get out of here.
He's hiding in the bathroom stall crying.
That's terrible. Well,
it's a good place to get sales.
I mean, it's not bad. I mean, everyone's got to go, right? So you figure you'll definitely get all that traffic without question. So genius. Like, think about it.
So Victor, now that I have you here, I really want to pick your brain a little bit.
Let's go.
Let's talk about your Kickstarter campaign.
Sure.
So you had mentioned before we went live that you just funded yesterday.
Yes. Thanks to a huge fan. I won't name names, but they put a tremendous contribution in, and they are the ones that absolutely pushed us over. So big thanks to everyone that supported, but especially the person, you know who you are. Huge thanks to you.
And Kyle, can we get the link to the Kindergartens in the comments here? folks, you definitely want to back this book. Now, I want to hear about Kindergardians. Tell us about what this book is, what it means to you, why it's so important, all that wonderful stuff. Love the title.
Yes. Thank you. Wonder Care Presents The Kindergardians is an all-ages title. It's essentially Muppet Babies meets the Justice League. And the whole thing about it is to return back to comics and stories that inspired me as a kid, to really cater to that audience, because a lot of times, when we get into comics these days, we want to tell, compelling adult, grown-up, graphic stories, but then we leave behind the generation that we need to build that's going to carry on comics. So I wanted to make something specifically that catered to that audience, but then actually kind of play around with what it means to be all ages. All ages doesn't mean for kids, it means for everybody. So kids can get something out of it, but adults can read it and get something out of it, and kind of have that same sort of Silver Agey vibe. It's just pure adventure. The hilarious origin story of where it came from was actually roots of my You Create Comics line. So like I said, I teach with comics, and I was trying to get into schools, but at the time, the only books on my roster were The Samaritan, The Trouble with Love, and then Origins Unknown. Now, Origins Unknown is teen friendly, but if I'm trying to get into middle or we'll say elementary schools, it's too graphic, right? There's some curse words. It's more of like a PG-13 type title. So I had nothing when I'm trying to prove that I'm a comic creator that I could show that would be age appropriate for elementary school. And in the back of my head, I had this idea of kindergarten superheroes. I hadn't really seen that. So I was like, this is the thing. I got to do this. I want to do it. And luckily, along the way on the con circuit, I had met Justin, and Justin's artwork just spoke to that audience, that thing. It's very cartoon friendly. It's very accessible, clean lines. It's just beautiful. And so I remember.
One thing, I hate to cut you off, but
no.
I love that you pointed that out, because I think every title every artist brings something special to the projects that they're working on. And when the creators recognize that, it's not just a sole production anymore, it's now a team effort. And that's
exactly. Yo, that is 1,000,000% true. And to the point where what I've loved about my partnership with Justin is when he gets that creative bug and wants to do something, I'm like, go. It's not a matter of permission, it's go for it. How do you want to see this through? We have 50-50 ownership of this product, right? So it's not just a look at it saying oh, this is my concept, or these are the characters that I built up. No. He has put in as much work as I have in so many different ways and in different ways that I'm like, no, you definitely deserve 50-50 ownership. So do what you want to do. He actually started a Tumblr page, Wonder Care After School at tumblr.com. And he wanted to do little comic strips, little jokes, featuring the kids that, we could use as little fun filler material. And I was like, go for it. And so he wrote a majority of them. And then, of course, I get inspired by that. So then I start writing some that tie into the upcoming issues. So then we're using this as a fun little filler piece and then a launch point for whatever next issue we're about to do. So just the way that we've collaborated, keeping that inspiration going back and forth, how do you not call that person, an equal partner in your creativity? You have to. That's just absolutely it. But yeah, so to that end, had reached out to Justin, pitched the Wonder Care series, and that's all I called it at the time. It was just called Wonder Care. And he was like, yeah, sure, this sounds amazing. So now I have this product that when I go to elementary schools and I'm like, hey, I want to teach kids comics. And they go, well, what do you make? I can show them this series. And they go, oh, yes, absolutely, come on in. So the origin of Wonder Care is I needed it in order to justify getting into schools as a comic creator. I didn't want to be, coming in with Alan Moore level, adult material trying to talk to kids, because that's inappropriate. So let's make something that fits that audience, right? And actually showcases what
the first couple pages, kids. I just imagine a verbal retelling. So what happens in the first couple pages is this superhero gets murdered. And
seriously.
And speaking of how you work with artists, see, there's a dramatic difference in my approach.
Okay.
You sound like the kind of guy I would love to work for, because let me tell you, I'm the kind of guy you don't want to work for. Here's what I do.
Get out of here.
No, I'm not kidding. Here's what I do with my creators. I turn the hourglass upside down and I say, you have until this bottle fills up. And then you have my permission to try.
I mean, I can be hardcore when it comes to certain production things. Lord knows, Justin can tell you that I can be very bullheaded with certain ideas, right? Ultimately, my goal is for the mutual success of both of us, and that's not always obvious until we get through the rigmarole of some of the minutia of these things. But when it comes down to it, yeah, I have opinions as a creative. I will give pushback on things, whether that's the production style of things, whether that's a response to maybe some social commentaries that are happening in the community, and whether or not we want to work with somebody or not work with somebody. Like, I'll be that person, be like, nah, I don't care, we're going to work with them. Or I'll be that person to go, nah, we're going to cut this off because we need to for this reason, this reason, this reason. We've been friends long enough and collaborators long enough that it's an easier process to communicate, though. And I think that's the biggest thing, is how do we communicate with each other? It's definitely born out of respect. I definitely respect what he does. Luckily, he respects what I do. And so it's easy for us to just communicate to get the best product out of both of us.
I agree. That's really fantastic. And speaking to that, about what you were saying before about how you present this to schools and everything. So JD Smith said, Smart Victor reminds me of the time I applied for the Dora Explorer storyboard artist position with my horror movie storyboards. Obviously, I didn't get the gig. And you know what? I'll tell you, he's not wrong either.
Right.
There are certain positions I've been looking for in comics that, I can't necessarily. I've only done adult stuff. I haven't really done anything.
Right.
So I'm not the guy you want working on, a kid's book, unless I come up with my own kid's book, and it happens to be something that I'm truly invested in. And I think it's really interesting. The way I see you, Victor, is you're trying to inspire the next generation of comic book creators. And not just creators, but readers, which is essential to the growth of our business. Because I look at it this way. I have my books, right? Eastern Shin, my next book, Warline. These are all books that are not targeted for kids, but those kids will one day be adults, and I want them to be able to have an interest in it. We look 5, 10, 15 years from now, I still want people to I still want there to be interest. I want the interest to grow. That can't happen unless you're doing what you're doing. And you are serving an absolutely pivotal role in this field doing this.
Thank you so much.
It's just the truth. There's nothing to thank me for. Thank you for
what. No. I'll tell you the honest thing about it is I appreciate the recognition of that job, because it's not necessarily the most lucrative side of things.
I actually think it sounds lucrative. It
should be. That's the thing. It should be, but it's not. And even still, it can't be about the money. No matter what, it can't be about the money. It's got to be about the thing that is your ultimate goal, which is bringing in new readers. And sometimes you have to put yourself in a position where you will actively lose money in the initial, but over time be willing to gain that back by the support of these readers as they grow with you. And that's the next phase of things. That's where we're trying to take things to this next level of what can we do that will disseminate product ideas, anything like that, into the market that's going to build people, whether we're losing money on it initially or not, that over time, over 3, 4, 5 years, we'll see the recoup come back when they catch up to what we've given them, because that's the thing. We've spent some time investing in making some cool things. Now we got to spend some time in investing in giving it away so that people have awareness of it, so that then we can kind of come back and go, okay, we've given you this much. Are you willing to buy the rest? And if you're willing to buy in, you're one of us now. And now you are that generation of reader that we absolutely need.
That's interesting. Victor, I want to dig a little deeper into this. We're talking about what's lucrative and not. And I've been having a lot of conversations with this, with Kyle and with many of my other contemporaries, including Ted, about what we're doing, because for me, I truly feel alive when I'm on a convention floor selling my books. That's when I feel the most alive. That's me in my highest, most dominant form, right? And
I've seen that. That's true.
Well, it's the same. The same is true for you in the sense of whatever it is you're doing. Whenever you're hosting panels or whenever even when you're here, I feel it. You got this energy, man.
Dude, thank you.
My question to you is, I know you have a large family. You have 5 children.
5 kiddos, yeah.
And you're married. You've been married a long time. and you've been doing this a long time. So what are you doing in order to make comics your full-time hustle? Because I am just so blown away by it. Because so few people can do what we're doing.
That is true. So, okay, that is a great question, and this one actually plays into how I feel about comic conventions as a whole. So, walk with me on this one.
Yeah.
So when you say make comics your job, right? That to me is not simply the production of a comic book, graphic novel, or series that you put out. It's comics. So comics as this term is so big. I don't think that you can actively define what comics are in a singular sense until you start putting formats on the back end of it. So you can say comic book, you can say comic strip, but comics as at best is a culture, right? So that's clothing, that's education material, that's activities, that's all kinds of things. So for me, when I say that I do comics for a living, I have my You Create Comics line, which can be very, very lucrative when I'm hired, right? To be real, and I know it can be tacky to talk. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, it can be tacky to talk dollars and cents, but I think it's important for us to know what we're getting into. So when I have a model that what I'm doing is I'm talking about hours-long programming content. Sorry, I'm making brand-specific materials that become takeaways for the kids to utilize, reproduce, and draw from. I can command up to $1,500 for 3 hours from an education facility for up to 200 students. Now, $1,500 for 3 hours, boils down to $500 an hour, and that sounds amazing. The truth is, though, there are not a lot of entities that can actively afford to pay that. So that's part of the balance of things is while you might not have a lot of these jobs, when you get them, how do you turn that into something reasonable, something respectable? Can you actively create something where you are offered some kind of dollars like this, take a portion of that profitability, reinvest that into your creativity in some way, shape, or form, whether it's paying for another artist, paying for a print run, or something, while still maintaining your everyday living expenses. Luckily, I've got a great partner that I work with, so that helps on that front. And obviously, when it comes to that, there's things that are required of me on the flip side. For the first, 3 years of my daughter's life, my youngest daughter, I was a stay-at-home dad. So I'm at home, even while I was working for convention companies, right? Like I was working for Wizard World at the time as artist alley coordinator. So there would be times where I'm literally feeding my daughter while we're on a conference call because that was part of the job. That was comics to me because I'm still actively in the scene. I'm still, engaging with, promoters on that level, talking about creators, trying to bring creators to different events. All of that is comics. And so to find your way into comics and not be so pigeonholed with your concept of what that actually means. Oh, I got to write comics. Oh, I got to work for a publisher. No, comics is what you decide it is as a part of the culture. So if you can, open up your mind to that, it's way easier to find profitable success to be able to do it long term and full time. So that's the thing is to get away from what we think comics are and redefine it.
And let's look at it this way too. Neither of us have been published by Marvel and DC. Yet
right.
Both of us are still working in this industry full time. Think of all the dealers out there. They don't work for Marvel or DC.
Sure don't. Marvel and DC work for them. That's really the truth.
Exactly. That's absolutely the truth, And even the creators, I mean, they're balancing all these different hats going between not just comics, but a lot of them going to video games. Like my Yisun Shin artist, he got a job at Dynamite working on the Shadow. Then he did a Batman Shadow crossover, and then he went over to video games. He's now doing Call of Duty comics and character designs for Activision, directly for Activision. And he's like, he was just telling me the other day, the checks, it's more, not in terms of double, but in terms of actually adding zeros to the paycheck. It's like, it's just a completely different ballgame. But
of course,
the question, I guess the thing, and I've been soul searching about this, and I agree with everything you're saying, by the way, because just to show you how true it is, that's what I realized. Like when COVID hit and conventions stopped, that's what got me into live sales, because I realized, you know what, I started with editing, and I was like, this is not really what I want to be doing. I want to be selling. I want to be out there and getting people excited about projects, telling them about different things, and that's that pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
is sales. So, you know, I've always just kind of found myself in there, and it's, you know, something I enjoy doing, but it's not writing Batman. I would hate writing Batman in the sense that if I had the opportunity to do an issue, I would be very happy. That would be cool, just to say, hey,
Sure.
I did it. It's a bucket list. But, you know, I know Tom King, and I don't know how he deals with, how he dealt with all the stuff that went on. I remember running into him at San Diego Comic-Con one year. He had a bodyguard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because of a Batman comic he did. Like,
Right.
it's ridiculous.
The vitriol that he got off of that, it was like, I need to make sure I'm protected. That's silly. Like, this is comics, but that is true. What I actually appreciate about what you're talking about, specifically with regards to the pandemic, is your specific way of pivoting to find success in spite of that. And I think that's the mentality that has literally changed the industry and will continue to change the industry over the next few years. I love comic cons, but when we had a multitude of years without them, or at least not in the same capacity, creators like yourself proved you don't actually need comic cons. You can create your own experiences, your own platforms to sell. And what makes that amazing is not only did you create a platform to sell, now it's actual entertainment, because people are getting to know you as an individual, as a creator. And so you've now made comics more than just you selling them. It is the show of you selling them, which is why you're the greatest showman in comics.
I appreciate that.
I'm just saying. But like, this is what you did, right? You took this idea of what comics means to you and put that off in this totally different funnel that other people either weren't doing or can't do as well as you do. So now you've made a lane for yourself that is purely yours. Like, other people can jump in, but they're not you. And so that's the thing that you have now done. You've made your comics, and no one else can touch that.
I think that's true of all of us, because I could never do what you're doing. But speaking of what you're doing, I'm very curious right now. You're out in San Diego.
Yeah.
So first off, what brought you out to San Diego? And meaning, like, why, like, what's your primary objective out here? You know, what are your goals? What's going on out here? What are we working on?
So San Diego is one of the few shows that I attend as strictly a fan. And I say that with quotes because being in this industry, there are times when you can't just be a fan anymore, right? Like, if somebody sees you, they need you for a panel. I'm very open to be that guy that, like, you know, last minute, Hail Mary, you need an audible. Hey, Vic, can you jump in on this? Yeah, I got you. In fact, I did that yesterday. I had 2 panels, and when I came out here, I was not booked for anything. I was literally on a fan experience. And that's one of the things that I like about this show is that in its gargantuan nature and all the media hype, what it's for me is to reinvigorate my love as a nerd, right? Like, I need sometimes to have that thing that goes, remember why you like doing this? Remember that 10-year-old you? Let's do some stuff for him. And, you know, while creating can actually stimulate a lot of that, just being a part of this industry has to do that as well. So that's one of the reasons why I adore coming out here. This year is a little different. I have made a lot of inroads into various different parts of the industry. And at this point, I've got one of the biggest inroads of my career that's kind of, you know, hovering in the horizon, which is my first look development deal that I signed last fall with AHA Media. AHA is a company out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, with offices in LA. And so now I'm in a different spot where, because of this first look deal, which would open up the opportunity for any of the books that I publish through Vantage In-House to get made into movies, TVs, television things, animated features, like whatever, I'm now engaging with different companies on a different level. So, you know, I've got an invite to an Amazon party. Well, now I have to be in a very different mode when I get there, because I could be meeting people that next week could be folks that I get in front of because I'm pitching something. And so now it's a little different, where it's not just me being a fan and congenial, you know, with that sense. I have to look at it, go, this could be an investment to a future project. So build this relationship correctly now, so that not only do they know that I'm a fan of stuff, but I'm also a practitioner, I'm a creator, and I'm a businessman. And so we have this understanding of, oh, who is this guy? Oh, he does this, and this. Well, let's keep an eye on him, because we never know what we might need in this capacity. And I like being that guy that's available and capable of enacting whatever that opportunity shows itself.
Here's an interesting question. You mentioned an Amazon party.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to this Amazon party, are you dressing different?
So funny enough, this was my planned outfit for the day.
Yeah, no.
So,
Sorry,
yeah.
hold on. I want to hear your question, but I wanted to,
Yeah.
I want to hear your answer, but I wanted to,
I got you.
I wanted to add to my question. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Also, not just how you're dressing, but demeanor too. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just curious from a networking standpoint. Like, what's the game plan here?
So, considering what this party is for, which is the Paper Girls TV series, right? So the TV series is coming out on Amazon next week. I did a panel for the cast 2 weeks ago at Fan Expo Chicago, and it was their first time, ever doing a panel, ever doing a Comic Con. So there was, a bit of nervousness, and I was thankfully one of the processes put in place to help, integrate them into this world, right? To get them ready for what they're about to experience at San Diego, and it went really, really well. So much so that I was given an invite to a specific Paper Girls party hosted by Amazon that I'm going to go to tonight. They're going to do a special premiere. I think they're going to show like the first 3 episodes. It's going to be amazing. So in terms of demeanor, my job as a moderator is to go and protect the guests, right? So there's 4 young ladies of the cast, all of them minors, all of them female. So the thing for me as almost a dad move, was to how do I talk about this show that other people haven't seen, but still protect them in a way that, nobody says anything untoward or anything like that. So that was a very specific demeanor that I met them with. When we see each other tonight, again, very professional. But at the same time, if I meet people that are behind the scenes at Amazon, yes, I'll still be professional, but I will be more upfront about the fact that I am a creator. It'll be important to me to let them know that I am open to any sort of thing that they're doing, whether that's, oh, we got this other thing that we would love for you to moderate. Cool. I will create that opportunity as well. If you're looking for stuff to, develop and transition or acquire, I'm definitely a guy that has some of that. So I'm literally that jack of all trades that has a little something for everybody, depending on what you need. So that's kind of the mentality that I'll go to the party with, is to keep my eyes open and see what does anyone need of me. Even if it's a matter of, there's somebody that's
to me. I remember you saying,
you got,
and
it gotta be that,
Victor. That conversation when I had you on my show 2 years ago, right in the middle of COVID. And if anybody's interested in seeing that episode, I'll link it. Yeah, it was but what was so great about that was what you said is like, what value can I bring to you?
Yes.
And that really that changed my mindset so much. I'm not kidding. I would not be here doing this right now if it wasn't for what you said with that. And another thing I took from you too was the QR codes in the bathrooms.
Hey, bro.
That was brilliant.
It works.
It does work. It works. And I've actually learned a new trick too, which you and I should talk about this. Scavenger hunts.
Scavenger hunts are amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right. So you know what? I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do this because, again, for me, it's not a matter of necessarily my profitability or holding on to a concept and nobody else gets to play with this. I want to put this out there because the more people that are playing with this, the better off we'll be with this. So my next thing that I'm going to put out into the world, we're actually going to do this as one of the stretch goals for the Kindergartens campaign, are trading cards. Trading cards that not just feature a character. No, they're actually going to feature the front cover of our books. On the back of it, the QR code will take you to a PDF reader of that issue.
Oh, that is awesome. That is freaking awesome. I love that idea.
Thank you.
I love that idea. That's something you could sell on your table for $1, like stickers.
$1, right? Dude,
yeah.
Listen, so here's the way that we're doing it.
Idea. Oh, man, I love it. That is
the way we're doing this, though.
Brilliant.
We're going to include those on people's orders, and we're calling those shareables. So if you get this book and you get it to a kid, we want that kid to be able to share the card with their friend, and now their friend has a copy of that book, and now we've got more readers, and it didn't really cost us a lot. The cards themselves won't cost a lot of money to produce. The
cards themselves cost nothing. Yeah,
so
that is freaking brilliant. That's even better than like stickers or some other knickknack. It's like, here you got, and I'm not kidding, Victor. Every single time, it's like you're always like upping your game and looking for a way.
Thank you.
And is that just something how did these ideas come to you? I'm just curious. Like, do you sit down at night, you know, and pour yourself a drink or smoke a cigar or whatever? No, I'm serious. Like, do you, because, you know, for me, I'm always thinking of, you know, different ideas for projects. You know, I'm trying to put my energy into my comics. You're putting your energy into being creative for the entire industry. Ways to really expose, to increase exposure in a way that is still profitable for the creators.
Yes,
that's brilliant stuff. If you are a creator and you're not listening to what Victor just said right now, you are missing big time. This is future stuff right here. But going back to my question, how do you come up with these ideas? Is it from looking at how other industries operate? Is it from just your own ideas of like what's not there? I'm very curious to know how your creative mind works.
It's a marriage of it all, really. Like, you got to look at things and start asking the hard questions of why isn't this working? What could be working? Why haven't we done this? And let's go. So, like, I'm one of those guys that, you know, I appreciate what manga represents in terms of readership. What I don't appreciate is when people so blanketly say that manga is going to kill American comics. I'm like, slow down. We haven't looked at why manga works the way that it does. It's just this overall assumption that it works better, and that's not quite fair. In fact, I just had this conversation, brought this up. I was moderating a panel for Joe Quesada while we were in Chicago, and we had this conversation, and I threw this out there. One of the things that I think would be phenomenal for us as creatives, especially when it comes to mainstream-oriented independent creators, not that we should get together and create a imprint. That shouldn't be the thing. What we should do is we should actually have sort of a benchmark. Like, if we have like 3 issues of a title, then we find other people that have like 3 issues of a title, and we put together an anthology book where it features all of our first issues, and then the next issue features all of our second issues, and the next one features all of our third. And that way, what we are doing is we are kind of engaging the readership of these projects. One of the things that kills us as independent guys is we're trying to create this long form story, but we don't know that there's an audience yet. So until we know, use the anthology model, which is exactly how Marvel and DC started. When you go back and look at what Action Comics is, that is actually an anthology series. The first issue of that only had 13 pages of Superman stories. It was filled with other stuff. So it's an anthology. Same thing when you look at Amazing Fantasy 15. That had 11 pages of Spider-Man. It had other stuff in it, right? Journey into Mystery, what is it? Tales of Suspense. All of these things were anthology-style books that were put out, and that's how you figured out what was popular. Shonen Jump does the same thing for manga. Once it gets popular, then that series gets to go on its own. So when we compare like manga sales, this is actually a product that had to go through the gridiron to prove that it was good enough to get brought into its own solo series.
I just don't think it applies. Like, that's like saying action movies are better than horror movies. You can't say
right.
Manga,
you can't say that.
It's its own subculture and its own subgenre. You know,
absolutely,
it truly is. And here's the thing: I love a good manga, but I'm not a manga guy. I'm trying to American comics.
I get that. I get that. Like a million percent. I get that. But that's the thing. It's like, what about manga works, and how can we take that? I think the thing that makes manga work first is the fact that everything is collected in this we'll say battleground area, right? Because they compete against each other in Shonen Jump, right? And other books like that. They compete against each other as to who gets to actually be rated as the top manga, which one gets to continue its series first, and then moves into other media. So all these different things happen in order to, before you get that, volume 35 of One Piece, it started in Shonen Jump. So if we start doing that, right, how many of us would be able to chip in on a cheaper run of a big, graphic novel order, right? But we're sending out to comic shops, we're taking that to conventions. And if people like what we're talking about in that book, and we get enough people to sign up for a mailing list or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and then we take that into an individual series. Now we're following the same model as manga, but we're going to be more successful because we're not just coming out the gate throwing stuff at the wall hoping that it sticks. We've actually built an audience and utilized each other's audience in order to do it. So if we had a similar style book, or not similar book, but because they were in the same anthology, your audience could be my audience and vice versa. And so now we've built something great that can translate for everybody.
Absolutely. I think I love the idea of what Shonen Jump,
Yes.
Because I think the stakes should always be should be there, kind of, in some way. I mean, no one loves competition, but I think we all love competition.
We all do,
right? Like I don't think it applies so much as to say like, like just even taking the two of us, you and I do such different things. We add such different value in what we're doing that it's not comparable. Even with the comic book work that we're doing, it's not comparable. But there is that side of us that's still competitive, and I've learned to drive it towards myself. I've learned to try and compete with myself as opposed to competing with other creators, because I just don't. I think we depend on each other to grow too, because everybody serves that purpose. Like, I'll tell you right now, there was a book I worked on, and there was a point when I will just call myself out and say that I was a detriment to the production process.
Wow. And
I will say that because I was just too controlling of everything. And so I got kicked off the project, and it still got done. And I got the books, I got my comps, and I started slinging it. Because you know what? I'm proud of the creator. I'm proud of what they achieved. And you know what? It's not about me. And I'll tell you what, it's better for me to have a good relationship with that creator, regardless of the fact he's probably never going to hire me again. But it's better for me to have a good relationship with, at least not to edit his books. But aside from that, it's better to have that kind of relationship where it's like, you know what? I realized maybe I didn't do this one thing right, but here's how I'm going to make it up to you. I'm going to tell you what you did was, I'm going to tell everybody that what you did was great. I'm going to push this book. I'm going to let everybody know that it's fantastic and that they should have it. Because I'll tell you what, I'm working off of his audience now. Right. He's going to work off of my audience. Obviously, he's eager to send me more books. He keeps telling me, "Hey, you want more? Just let me know. I got more." And I'll tell you what else that does for me, Victor. That gives me something else to sell at a convention. Now, imagine if I took the other approach and got competitive with him and said, "Well, this guy's a jerk. He fired me off this project and all this stuff." People get fired off of stuff all the time.
Yes, they do.
It happens. A new editor in chief comes in and he doesn't like everybody.
Switch it up. Everybody changes, dude. What you're talking about is how your reputation as an individual can carry, right? And you recognize that. So in terms of that, what you figured out is the reputation that you want is that you are a great man who is a great collaborator, or whatever level that might be, right? And that's the point. That's the thing that when it comes to really good like competition, it's not a matter of did I beat you? It's are we making each other better? Yes. And that's the thing. Like that's the best part of competition in our industry is we make each other better with the stuff that we do. I just came up with this idea for these cards and I put this out there. Now, if somebody else jumps on that and they do it better than what I had in mind, that's amazing because now I have to step up.
Yeah. And here's the thing, first of the innovators, then they're the imitators, and then they're the idiots, right? But you got something that's actually done well, and you take that same idea, it doesn't work like that in comics. Right. It actually works in a very it works on a very opposite level because it's like now you got, before you just had one of this new item, like let's just say your trading card, right? I like your trading card idea so much that I might try and get something like that for C2E2. It's just such a simple thing. You put a QR code on the back. It's $1 and you get a digital comic. I mean, for anybody who is uncertain, here's an item you can get for $1, and it costs nothing. I'm not kidding, Victor. That's something.
Dude, no, I'm all for it. And the other thing about it is you'd be surprised how you can build quantity with such a thing, right? So say if you have a number of different titles or something like that, it's $1 each or 6 for $5. How many people are going to toss you $5, get these 6 cards, and then possibly come back for the physical copies of issues 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, like you might have? Like, it's a way to seed your audience very inexpensively on their part as well as your part, but build that long-term investment. You find another way to do that in a better sense. Like maybe you figure out a way that you make it a competitive game, or you make them collectible cards themselves. You do foiling on it, but you still get to read the book. whatever that might be, elevates that concept. And now, as a practitioner myself, there comes a point where I got to go, I'm gonna have to jump on that one too. I gotta see how I can take that to the next level. And what ends up happening is we all have great product. We have amazing product, and we have fans that get amazing stuff from us as creatives. Everybody wins. Everybody.
I agree. So Victor, you're at San Diego.
Yes.
No one goes to San Diego without some big announcement to make. We're down to the last 18 minutes of our show.
Yes.
The lucky round number of 18. So do you have any big announcements to make for San Diego Comic-Con?
I definitely do. So as we said before, WonderCare presents the Kindergartens, fully funded yesterday. We're super excited about that. One of the things that we announced leading up to that is the fact that, as I said before, I signed a first look deal with AHA Media. So everything that I produce under the whole Vantage In-House label is applicable for this deal. That includes WonderCare presents the Kindergartens. So this is one of those projects now that it doesn't have to just stay on the comic book page. It has the opportunity, the potential to be live action, animation, TV series, a children's play. It has that opportunity to expand into other media, and we are actively looking at what ways we can do just that. We're going to expand this product line. One of the big things that I'm looking for in Vantage In-House is we're actually going to do sort of like chapter books versions of this, much in the same way as Captain Underpants. We see that Dave Pilkey is brilliant with what he's doing. So again, in that sense of competition, we're going to jump into that market. We're going to take our comics and we're going to translate them into more prose reader-friendly versions. We're going into that. We've got the shareable cards that we're going to be doing. That's going to be a whole set of cards that we're going to produce. We're going to make sets of them. We're going to make packs of them. I know I'm going to be distributing those in my neighborhood. So I'm going to be giving those out to kids in my neighborhood just to get them involved with reading comics. And I'm going to be the comic book guy. Like, that's the thing. Okay, one that I'm going to throw out there for you guys. Since they are trading cards, we are going to do versions that are sketch covers. And so there are going to be, trading cards with pieces, and we're going to get the kids to draw their favorite characters on some of those. And I'm going to auction those off. Like, I'm going to buy those from those kids, and I'm going to auction those off and raise money for something. I don't even know what it's going to be for, but I'm going to do that. And I want these kids to be actively in the industry, making stuff and participating in that way. So not only are we getting them as readers, we are going to dabble in them being creators as well. So that's all part of the plan. But the biggest news, again, is that the first look deal does include the Kindergarten. So there is a very real chance that we're going to see that in another media form within the next few years.
It's really interesting that you talk about this. I noticed that a lot of my customers who shop with me on my sales shows, the hardcore collectors, many of them have dabbled with creating comics.
Of course they have. Of course.
Because it's one of those things that's just so easy to jump into. I think pulling it off in a way that gets you the kind of, well, I'm not going to say that. Here's what I'm going to say, because I'm going to go back to something you said, which is you create your own path in this industry.
Yes, you do.
There is no one way to break into comics. And I remember reading something that both either Mark Waid wrote it or Gail Simone wrote it. The whole idea is like, once you break into comics, there's like this forever. Yeah, it changes again. And it's interesting because that was never the case for me. For me, it was just I decided I wanted to work in comics. I got rejected by everybody, and I said, no, I still want to work in comics, and I just made it work myself. And I think there's a part of you that did this, that made the same decision, and you create your own. You create your own. And you create yourself as your own sort of like entity within the industry. Because I can tell you right now, we were talking about how you were having drinks with Scott Snyder on Wednesday. Scott Snyder can't do what Victor Dandridge could do. Hell no. He can write an incredible story, but he cannot do what you do, because that's, and I have all the respect in the world for Scott. He's wonderful man. He's the sweetest guy in the world and one hell of a writer, but he can't do what you do he can't come up with those kinds of ideas the same way that you are, because wired differently. We all serve that different purpose. And when you look at comics as this big, huge, you know, thing, and Kyle and I have this conversation all the time. There's so many different facets of this, you know, of this field that, you know, you really make your own path.
Of course you have to. If you don't, you are beholden to other people's whims, and then you don't get to stay in this game as long as you want to. You know, if you look at the history of comics, some of our best creatives burnt out way too soon because part of the process that they didn't develop was understanding that they could do it themselves. You know, if you look at Jack Kirby, one of the greatest, most prolific creators of our business in history, like forever, because he always tried to align himself with a publisher, never achieved what he absolutely wanted. If Jack had decided, no, I'm just going to do this on my own, in my own way, and had some of the resources, you know, that he could apply, anything, right? Like, he could have changed the game in a totally different way, but he had this proclivity to always want to attach himself to a publisher. And maybe that was because a publisher guarantees a check, and this is a working man, he's got a family. I get that. The way that I work, I'm more inclined to be like, nah, I'm gonna step out there and I'm gonna figure this out for myself, and I'm not gonna ask you for permission, because then you can never take it away from me. And if you can't take it away from me, then I get the opportunity, the creativity, and the freedom to just keep doing this in as many different ways as possible. There's a bunch of people that first met me as the 8-bit guy. I don't even do that anymore.
That's what you were doing.
I was doing when we met.
Yeah, and you were killing it, dude. You were rocking. Exactly. That was a business that you had going. So, all right, you stopped doing it. Why?
Because I had an opportunity to link up with Wizard World, and they had put me in a position where they were going to cover all of my expenses for going to all their shows. So that was my table, hotel, travel, all covered by them. So my overhead dropped to literally nothing. So in terms of risk, it was time for me to risk putting out something that would be a little harder to sell, books, and see how good I could, you know, get my name out there in the world as a comic book creator. That was the thing. It wasn't about making the money. It was, how do I want to be seen in this business? I didn't want to be the 8-bit guy. I wanted to be Victor, a comic book creator. So when I, you know, had created the right opportunity, the perfect storm of that opportunity set, then that's what I did. I changed my entire product line, came out with comics, and for the last few years, that's how people know me. Oh, that's the writer of this. That's the publisher of that. Little did they know that I had written a lot of that stuff while I was still the 8-bit guy, but the 8-bits were too popular. It overshadowed them. Nobody knew. So when I had the opportunity and the forethought to say, this is how I want to be known in this business, switched it up. So that was the thing.
Was leaving that business stepping outside of your comfort zone, or was it stepping into your comfort zone?
Both at the same time. It was what I wanted to do, but because I wanted it that bad, I was terrified of it. So, you know, at the same time, it's yes, I'm becoming, but I'm scared of what I'm becoming because I don't know if that's going to work.
You know, it's interesting. When I first started selling Yixin Shin, I didn't know what I was doing. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
None of us do.
Yeah, it's not like I came out there with like a plan or anything like that. It just kind of started happening where I was like, all right, here's the problem I have. The problem is no one can see my book. So in order to get them to see my book, I have to put it in their hands.
That's right.
Let them feel it, touch it, do all that kind of stuff. Pet it, nurture it, watch the hourglass fill up.
Yes.
You know, and give them the gist of it, right? And then it just kind of snowballed from there. What it's been, and it has been my comfort zone because I've gotten so used to it. I've figured out how to make this work for me when I go to conventions, and I still do very heavily depend on conventions, regardless of everything else I'm doing.
You do a phenomenal job of that, by the way.
I appreciate that. It's tough to juggle. It's tough to juggle it, but I'm curious about how you stepped out of your comfort zone, because that's something that's a similar position that I'm in right now, because I got a new book coming out, different opportunities kind of coming my way. And I think about that too, especially in your case, it's very interesting. You were working with Wizard for a while. So has that relationship transitioned over to Fan Expo, or are you just out of that now?
No, it's transitioned, but in a different way. Not everyone has the same capacity. There's a lot of new people that I got to get to know. So luckily, my ideology for how to work, you know, what can I do for you, maintain. So it opens me up to creating brand new relationships with this group. So I'm trying to do things in a similar way using my experience to better, my position. But it is basically just kind of stepping into some stuff brand new, starting all over again, keeping yourself fresh, keeping yourself interested in what you're doing. So like you have a new book. The beautiful part about that is going back to the beginning and saying, I remember what it's like to sell, my first book. Can I do that same thing for this one? How do I get people to hit that same level of energy when it's something totally different? And as long as you are creating an experience, which is always your job when you're behind the table, it's not about selling this thing or creating an experience. It doesn't matter what you're actually creating it for, as long as you're doing that. So, I had the 8-bit challenge. Okay, boom. Now we moved into books. Can I get you to be a reader? Can I challenge you to be a comic book reader? Maybe you'll buy this now, but really more than just buying it, I want you to read it so you'll buy something else next time. Now you're a reader. Now you're part of this whole phenomenon of comic book readership. And once we got our hooks in you, we don't ever have to let you go. Maybe I've run out of stuff for you to read, but then I shoot you on to Onrie, who's got this amazing series or this new thing that's dropping that I don't even know yet, but follow this dude because he's amazing so you can see something else. And now we've got a reader for life, and we're not competing. We're just making each other better.
Absolutely. Victor, here's another question I have for you. How many conventions are you doing per year right now?
I would say collectively my total sum of comic book events, and I put it that way because what some people would qualify as conventions, I do on smaller scales by myself. So I would say, generally speaking, somewhere around 30 events a year. So even if it's like going to a movie theater when a comic book movie comes out and setting up, much in the same way that I would at a convention, but I don't have any other people there to sell against. And I'm, actively, pushing the fact that people are there for comics in some capacity. Can I get them to go home with some? I count that. So
how successful has that been for you?
That can be phenomenally successful. I mean, you spend a Saturday at a movie theater and you can walk out with at least $200. Now, considering how expensive movie tickets are, that means that people aren't necessarily planning to spend money with you. So if you can walk out of there $5 at a turn with $200, you've got some good readership that's built off of that. And it's solid. So yeah, I highly recommend that. Talk to your local movie theater. When a comic book movie comes out, now you're creating an experience for the moviegoers, especially if you're there premiere weekend. Now you created something very special. And if you build that good relationship, the theaters will be asking for you to come through. Even if you partner up with a movie theater, a local cosplayer that is going to dress up like one of the characters, and maybe they're taking pictures of themselves as their character reading your book. I did that with a Spider-Man release. I had these guys they were up against the wall, and it was so funny. They were crouched down up against this wall that had like this brick facade, and I had them reading issues of Wonder Care. And so I took the picture of them, flipped it, so now it looks like Spider-Man is hanging off of a web off the side of a building reading my comics.
That's so freaking cool. That's awesome. And that's great. That's great marketing too
right.
You can use all of that to your advantage. So 30, how many major conventions would you say out of those 30?
Major conventions, at least a dozen, close to 15, maybe 20. Like it's between, I'd say, a dozen and 20.
Yeah, I would say I'm about the same place too.
Yeah.
And you're able to juggle all of this stuff with 5 kids.
You got no choice. You got no choice, man. Like it's what I was saying. Luckily my kids are getting older. So, like there's a big enough gap. Like I've got a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old. That's on the low end. Like the rest of my kiddos are older. So at this point, what I'm really looking at is not doing this in spite of them, but using them to do it. I've got older kids that aren't in school now. So I'm about to be like, yo, y'all are coming on the road with me. You got to get to work. Let's figure out what you want to do for a living. Let's give you a taste of this, a taste of that. Will you take pictures for me, of me, and let's see what happens. And if you like that, let's look at what that might be for a career for you. So, I try to do things unconventionally. If that's their version of university, I'm all for it.
It's fascinating. I think that's it's given me a lot to. It's actually kind of honestly reinvigorated me a bit.
Good.
The last month I'm going to say has been really tough because I've been moving and taking care of having to take a step back from doing conventions and really focusing on live sales, which is not lucrative the same way that doing a Comic-Con is. It is
right.
It's good, but it's not the same thing. If you put me on a convention floor in front of people for 10 hours and I'm talking to random people, it's different. Usually when I do my live sales shows, it's usually the same people that I'm hitting up. So it's a very different thing. But seeing how you're balancing everything, and I'm assuming your wife is extremely proud of you and very supportive. And
maybe, I don't know. She might like me. She might not. It depends. You know what I'm saying? Is the rent due? Like, it depends on what the day is. So no, she's mad proud. She's not a comic book fan though. So there's times when she's like, yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, you don't even care. She's like, listen, you're going to come up with something new tomorrow. I'll be happy tomorrow with the new thing that you come up with. Today I'm tired. It happens. It happens.
Do you find it that it's somewhat of a breather for you to be with somebody that is not into comics?
Yes and no. She'll be my harshest critic, that's for sure, because she's not coming at it from any sort of, oh, I love this anyway, so yes, this is amazing. She'll be like, why? Why is this? And I really have to be good at what I'm doing in order to get that across. And so it's helpful in that regard for sure. But there are times when you definitely want somebody that's just going to geek out, for the sake of geeking out with you. So that becomes the balance right there.
All right, Victor, we're coming to the last 2 minutes of the show here.
Yes.
I want to give you a chance to, do your final shout out. We got the hand sanitizer hourglass going.
I feel like you've changed the hour like 6 times. Like I feel like I just changed it up.
It's so much fun. This is the most fun I've had all day.
That's amazing. Definitely follow me at Vantage In-House on all forms of social media. That's Instagram, Twitter. Hit us up, vantageinhouse.com, where you can check out all of our books. Definitely check out the You Create Comics line. That's the letter U, CRE, the number 8, comics.com. But if you are really wanting to support Vantage In-House and our growth and our expansion and all the great things that we're doing, our Kickstarter is still live for the next 15 days. We still have 2 more weeks of hitting this Kickstarter goal, or blasting beyond it, actually. And when I get back into town Monday, we will post up our first slate of
you got a question here.
That's a good one. It stands for Hardest Working Man in Comics.
Man, I wish I had my DJ siren.
That's what that stands for. Good question. But yeah, definitely check out the Kickstarter. We got stretch goals that we're gonna drop on Monday. So yes.
I'm gonna put mine up there too.
You should.
GS. I don't like where this is going. GS. That's already gonna allow people to assume something. Victor, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it. And the door is always open for you. Please come back anytime. And we really need to catch up. Are you going to C2E2?
I'll be at C2E2. That's actually where the campaign will end, is C2E2. So we'll have a big party.
We need to hang out and party and when you come into town for C2E2.
Consider it done, bro.
All right, guys. Nick's Original Art Show is coming up next. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I will see you next week with a brand new episode. Take care. And Victor, take care, man.
Will do.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.